Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to Series 4 we begin today. My name is Peter J. Redding. I'm a professional coach. I'm a certified master coach, and I have been coach training as a coach, trainer, mentor, facilitator, supervisor for the last 25 years. So welcome. Series 4 is going to be special. Series 4, it kind of builds on the first 3 series of live streaming that we've done over the last several months to build a foundation of what is a professional coach. And we've talked in depth around the ICF core competency model, the ICF code of ethics, and the last series in series 3, the ICF PCC markers. This series 4 is how do you do coaching? What are the mechanics? What are the steps that you go through with coaching? What are some of the examples of how to do some of these things at the basic level? And so for the next 11 weeks, 12 including today, it'll be 12 episodes on the stages of coaching. Specifically, we'll get to those 8 stages today as an overview. But then we'll go into, and let me bring this up right now. Here we go. So the next 12 weeks we'll be doing some live demos and some Q&A and interactivity in terms of asking questions. Today, number 1 episode is going to be the 8 stages of coaching engagement. And you can see there from 2 through 12, Coach for Life's fulfillment coaching model. We'll go into that in some depth next week. Following week, we'll be talking about who are you going to coach? Real basic. Who are you going to coach? Introducing yourself as a coach. How do you do that? Coach for Life's a coach-like conversation demonstration, and we'll do a live demo. Hopefully, one of you will volunteer to be coached. I will be the coach that is taking you through a coach-like conversation to get you practicing the principles that we've been talking about now for the last 3 months, actually being able to do it. We'll have another session the following week in terms of Q&A around that, because I'm going to invite you to practice that over the course of the week. We'll then go into the purpose of a sample session and then demonstrate a sample session the following week in week number 8, episode number 8. We'll then talk more specifically and get into the details of contracting. We'll do a quick overview of that one today, but a more extensive Q&A around how do you do contracting? What does that mean? The next stage is the foundation session, and again, going to a more extensive Q&A around what is a foundation, what's included in that. We'll touch on it briefly today in our outline, one of the 8 stages of it. The weekly coaching sessions, how do you do that? How do you take notes? What kind of notes do you take? And then finally, the completion session, which is the last session in a coaching engagement. So that's what's in store for us for today and the next 11 weeks. And let's get right to it. Also, if you have any questions, we're going to open that up, and we're probably going to open it up to audio. So you can type them into the chat box on Facebook, or you can type them into the chat box in LinkedIn, on Zoom. And if you're with me on Zoom, if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and I'm going to ask Cello to kind of coordinate that and call on that individual to maybe say it out loud so that we can record that on the audio track as well. All right. Today we're going to go look at, again, briefly, but look at how does a coaching engagement start? How does it get rooted? How does it get? What are the basic steps that are typical? It doesn't have to be exactly this way. It's not a. It's not a. You have to go through all these stages, but mostly you do. Just it's like a natural unfolding of what how does coaching engagements begin, how does it get rooted, and then how does it grow, and what happens along the way. So social networking, I'm going to call this one, like how do you meet somebody that is a coach or that needs to be coached or wants to be coached. What's your basic introduction? What does that sound like? I'm going to give you an actual example of that today. We can practice that. Offering of a sample session. I'll describe what that is in this session today. Actually do a sample session. And again, we're going to kind of explode that one out in 2 weeks, over the course of 2 weeks in episodes, I forget what it was, like 5 or 6 or whatever it was that we just went through. We'll spend 2 whole weeks on that one. The contracting, we'll talk about that. An overview today. The foundation session, again, is an overview today. The ongoing sessions and the completion session. So these are the things that we're going to be talking about today and kind of step you through the progression of what you can anticipate and what you need to get prepared for. Yeah. And if you have questions around any of these as we go through them, again, please raise your hand so Cello can see it on Zoom, and or type it into the chat box so we can address that today. So stage 1, social networking. When you meet somebody, what do you do? What do you do for a living? What do you do in life? What's going on in your life right now? Any of those kinds of questions that can happen in person, if you're still in person somewhere on the planet right now, but certainly through social networking, where you meet somebody, you find them interesting, they're up to some great things, or they talk about something that you're interested in, and so how do you go about doing that? What do you do? If I'm going to be introducing myself, again, in any kind of a social networking platform, live or virtual, a lot of people don't know what professional coaching is. So they're going to ask these are the kind of questions that they might come up with is, what is coaching? It sounds like mentoring, or is it like mentoring? Is that what you're doing? Is that what you're doing? Is it a type of therapy? Okay. Many people still say, "Oh, coaching. What sport? What?" Yeah. And my answer to that one, right? I'll give you that one right now. Is the most extreme sport ever in a lifetime. Life. That's the sport that I coach. Life. And if they start getting into that conversation, how could it benefit me? You know, how would it work for me? So these are the kinds of questions. And so the first thing here that I'm going to suggest is indicate that you are a coach. If you are a coach, or if you're studying or in the midst of studying to become a professional coach in an organized program, then start sharing with people, I am training to be a professional coach. Do not claim something that you're not. If you're not a certified coach, then don't claim yourself to be a certified coach, because you're not. If you are not an ICF professional coach, then don't say that. But if you are a casual coach, or if you're learning to be a coach, or you're a coach in training, then indicate that. To some of these questions, is it like mentoring? If you're a professional coach, you know that it's not mentoring, although mentors use coaching principles and competencies and skills as part of their mentoring. But mentoring generally goes into giving some advice or direction from an elder standpoint, and it's not by age, it's more by experience. If I were to get a social media mentor that knows a lot more about social media than I do, then they would be my mentor, because they have, again, they have a better and broader understanding of that. And so they're going to guide me through things that I want to accomplish in social media. Coaching is asking the client to do all the work. So as the coach, I don't give advice, I don't mentor, I don't advise or give advice. So it's different than mentoring. So that's how I would answer that on a casual initial conversation with a prospective client. If they relate it to therapy, then again, I can say, no, it's not therapy. Therapy tends to go back and look at things that an individual was violated in some form or fashion, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically. And it's not, a professional coach and professional coach training worldwide, from whether it's Coach for Life Institute, my coach training company, or any of the other accredited ICF accredited coach training companies, ACTP, accredited coach training programs. And you'll see that logo, ICF, ACTP. They will not be training you to be a therapist. In fact, we have ethical obligations to not do therapy. And we're very, very clear about that one. So if you need therapy, because coaching does not handle that part of life, then we refer out to a competent licensed therapist. Again, I talked about what sport is a common misconception, that when you mentioned that you're a coach, people would relate that almost immediately to a sports coach. And it's not, although I've trained, again, professional coaches, professional sport coaches, in the skills of a professional coach, to ask more questions, listen, create an environment for that athlete to figure out for themselves what it is that they need to do for themselves. And they, again, have incorporated the professional coaching practices and behaviors into their sports coaching. Okay. Now, when it comes to how could it benefit me, be prepared to answer this. It could benefit you by having greater clarity, having a greater sense of awareness, bringing up things from your unconscious or subconscious to a higher level within your own mind so that you can make better decisions. You can move forward in a direction that better serves you. All of those kinds of things can be benefits. Now, I do not guarantee that they will achieve what they want to set out to achieve, because, again, the client is doing all the work. I'm holding the space. I'm asking questions. I am supporting them. I am their cheerleader. I am their providing support. Wow, great work. Well done. What's next? And again, going right back to hitting the ball into their court, using a sports analogy. Okay. So how could it benefit me is a great way to do this from a coaching perspective is ask them a question. What would you like to have more of in your life? Is a terrific question up front in this early conversation. What's going on in your life now that you really love? And, wouldn't you like to create more of that? Those kinds of questions to open up the conversation between myself and that prospective client. All right. So that's social networking. What do you do? How do you do it? What's the benefit in this, if any, for me, etc.? It's also a good time to say what kind of coach you are. So we're going to get into the introduction here momentarily, because every person that you run across or that knows that you're a coach, you may not be the right coach for them. And it may not be the right modality of support for that individual at this point in time in their life as well. So we'll also talk about that in the next couple of steps. Okay, but it's like the icebreaker. What do you do? How do you do it? Who you do it for? All of those kinds of questions, right? So here we go. Step 2, basic introduction. So once they have figured out who you are, you're a coach, and you're having a conversation, then you can say, I am a blank who works with blank, who want blank in order to blank. It's a blankety blank. I'm a blankety blank coach. Really, really basic, but it gets a lot of information through to that prospective coaching client very quickly. And the beautiful thing about this one is it may or may not land. In other words, it may not fit for that particular person. And that is as valuable as if it does land for that person. In other words, while the coaching model, which we'll talk about next week and extensively, is a universal model that can be used by a coach that coaches basically anybody. But that one coach does not coach everybody. But the 4,000 people that I've trained have gone into all the various aspects of life, all the different stages of life, all the different types of people in life, all the different kinds of careers and jobs and responsibilities that an individual might have. My guess is that I have a coach out there that I've trained that is using that model to coach that individual at blank, at being an executive, at being a published author, at being a teacher, at being a neonatal nurse, and on and on and on, right? This introduction starts to narrow it down by saying, okay, so, in fact, here's an exercise. I want you to type into the chat box now. I am a blank coach. What kind of coach would you want to be? I'm a life coach. I'm a career coach. I'm an executive coach. I'm an entrepreneur coach. I am a college grad coach. I am a midlife crisis coach. I am a woman empowerment coach. I am a retirement coach. What are the different things that you do or that you've seen around you of other coaches that indicate what type of coach I am? Okay. So Naomi is weighing in here. I am a life transition coach. Perfect. Okay, so that tells the prospective client, if you're going through a transition in life, call Naomi, basically, right? That's what she specializes in, to get you from this stage of life to the next stage of life, whatever that might be for you, right? So I'm going from high school to college. I'm going from university to my first job. I'm going from my first job to my higher level job. I'm going from a CXO -2 to a CXO -1 stage of my career, etc. Okay, got a bunch of others coming through here. This is fantastic. Well done. Let me go back and just screen through these. Okay, Tanya's saying, I am an empowerment coach. Woohoo! Sign up for that one. Who wants more empowerment? Thank you very much. Yes, please. Alana's also an empowerment coach. Okay, so you have your choice. And they're both fantastic. I know, because I've trained them both. Okay. Yasha saying I'm a personal growth coach. Woohoo! So do you get the forward movement in the names of the kind of coach that you are, and the kind of person that is looking or ready for that kind of a coach is going to, it's like a vibrational tuning fork. It's like, boing. That's what I want to do. That's who I want to work with. And if it's not, then maybe they know somebody that is. Right? What else have we got here? Dr. Collette saying, I'm an executive and financial empowerment coach. Wow. Again, it's going to attract the kind of people that you want to attract to it, as opposed to the life transition person, right? The life transition person is going to say, executive finance, no, that's not for me. But the person that wants to be, is an executive or wants financial empowerment, they're going to call Dr. Collette. What's Amy say here? Okay, I'm a grief, trauma, and mindset shifter, light coach. Wow. Holy cow. Thank you for doing that work. So as you can see from some of these examples, there are lots of different types of coaches that are existing out there in the world. My estimate is that there's probably 100,000 coaches right now worldwide, and that's just a Peter Redding estimate. That doesn't come from anybody other than what I know about the industry and have been involved in for the last 25 years. My guess is that we need about 20 million coaches, ultimately. We are at the incredibly early, nascent, virgin starting point of professional coaching, of what we do as professional coaches and the people that we can serve. Because one coach can't serve a million people, not certainly on a one-on-one basis, which I think the real power of coaching is. So so I am a blank coach. We've got great examples here. Who works with, and here, I'm going to use, where was my executive? Dr. Collett says, I'm an executive and financial empowerment coach. Okay, so I'm an executive and financial empowerment coach who works with executives that desire, who want, or with early stage executives or mid-level executives or high-level executives. That's who I work with. Okay, so it's narrowing it down. Who want financial freedom, who want financial empowerment in order to blank. And again, the blank could be 20 different things, could be 1,000 different things. It could be those that want to provide a financial security for their family, that want to provide openings in their company for people that are that want to give back to the world. Okay? Create this for yourself and be prepared to say this to somebody tomorrow or the next day or the next week when you're talking about, I'm a professional coach, I am a blank coach who works with, and the person that you send that out to or that you're having a conversation with is going to say, wow, that's me. Okay, great. Let's move forward then. I would love to provide you with, and then we go to the next stage of a coaching engagement. Okay, so this is like the initial dance. Are you and I a good fit? Is it what you do would benefit me as a prospective client? And as a prospective client, am I the right prospective client for you as the coach? Because they may be a brilliant prospective client for somebody, coaching client, but not necessarily for all the people that I just read down here in terms of the type of coach they are, because they do something different. They have a different slice of population that they work with and serve. Okay? My suggestion is that you do 3, 4, 5 different ones of this particular introduction and try them out. A lot of questions that I get early on in coach training is, can I coach everybody? Well, the answer to that is possibly, in terms of the model that I'm teaching you. But in terms of the kind of client that you most want to work with and the client that most wants to work with you, you're probably going to end up eventually with 1, maybe 2. But it's going to be fairly narrow in terms of who you want to work with, because you just love those kinds of people. You're passionate about it. There's something sacred about it. There's something special. There's magic. There's like, I can't wait to coach Sally or Atul or Henrietta this coming Thursday to find out what she's up to. Okay. So try this out in the early stages of becoming a coach, becoming a professional coach. And then eventually I'm going to, again, we're at the basics. We're at the starting point, like day one here. So don't limit yourself right now, but you probably will limit yourself within a year. Okay. All right. Let's go. Let's see if there's any other questions here. No, we're good to go. Super duper. All right. Stage 3. Offer a free sample session. Now, I guess it doesn't have to be free, but 99.9% of them worldwide are free. A sample session is like an introductory session, or some people call it a chemistry session. So create a coaching wheel around what your coaching clients want support about, or around, or moving forward. A coaching wheel. We'll talk specifically about that here in 1 minute. B, name your sample session, including a benefit that is meaningful to your prospective ideal coaching client. So the wheel is as old as mankind. There's nothing new about this, but it's been a very popular generic tool in coaching. The generic one is a life wheel or a life balance wheel, or a very generic, your finances, your relationships, your rest and relaxation, that kind of thing is very generic. What I suggest you do is, once you figure out who you want to coach, and so let me take Yasha's example, personal growth. Okay, so I'm a personal growth coach. What are the top 7, 8, 9 things that someone that is interested in personal growth are going to be interested in? Okay, so I'm just going to make it up. Or actually, I'll have Yash, or all of you that typed in something already here in our chat box, which is fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for your participation. I'm going to ask each one of you, maybe we don't have enough time to do 8 of them, but for each of the kind of client that you are going to want to coach, what's the top thing that they might be interested in? To get better at, to have more consciousness around, to develop, to overcome. Just one thing. Just type it into the chat box. Okay, so Alana's got self-confidence. Perfect. All right. That's the self-empowerment coach. Catherine saying overcoming fear. Very common across the board. You can almost every single coach could put that on their wheel. Overcoming fear. To take some decisions. Yeah, to have the guts or the courage to make a decision is, again, I'm afraid of making the wrong decision. What will my parents say? What will my bosses say? What will my friends say? Blah, blah, blah. This is courageous work that we're asking a client to come into, because they are going to go to the depths of their being. And I, as a professional coach, is going to support that process, that exploration, in a non-threatening, non-challenging, non-directive way. But ultimately, they're the ones that need to make the decision. Making a difference in the world. Love that one, Naomi. Thank you. Making a difference in the world. Yasha's saying, okay, so improving their relationships, finding purposeful work, improving their finances, all excellent. And all of these would become spokes, if you will, of that wheel, right? For each of your wheels, they're going to be different wheels. And name your wheel, by the way. This is the self-empowerment wheel. This is the executive development wheel. But again, language it so that the client that you want to attract is going to go, oh, I need to talk with her, because that's what I'm up to. When you create a little wheel for them and go around it, and we're going to talk more about that when we get to the actual sample session, because it's built inside of the sample session. This is getting ready for the sample session. By creating the wheel ahead of time, you already have in your mind kind of an index of, here are the kind of things that my clients tend to work on or need support in. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I'm not an educator when it comes to this. But I'm going to support you and take you through a process for you to decide what it is that you want to do and how you want to go about doing it. Okay? So create the wheel, name the wheel, and name your sample session as well. So I don't just offer them a sample session, because that's like speaking Greek to someone that doesn't speak Greek. I don't know what a sample session is. I don't even know what coaching is yet, let alone a sample session. So that's like the inner acronyms of this profession. It's not an acronym, but you know what I'm saying. It's coach speak. It's not run-of-the-mill on the street speak. So name the sample session and call it a. I just saw one I thought I really liked. I think it was from Yash. Hold on here. Go back up here. Improving their relationships, finding purposeful life, improving their finance. Okay, so Yash is going to talk about and maybe call his sample session, right? This is the finding purpose sample session. Finding your life's purpose sample session. Whew, who doesn't want to know that? When somebody is in quandary about, what path have I taken in life? Where do I go with this? Then when Yash uses that terminology for offering a sample session, it's like, again, ding, I found the right guy. I found the right person to do my coaching with. So this is about customizing it. Okay. Next step is actually do the sample session. The sample session is there chemistry between the coach and the client and the coach, both ways. It has to work. The relationship has to work both ways, not just for the client. Is coaching an appropriate modality of support at this time for this specific prospective client or not? So in terms of the sample session is, it's probably a very poor analogy, but let's date before we get married. Let's get to know each other in terms of what you want, what you need, what you're looking for, and experience me as a coach in terms of, can I support you and provide you with that? If you're looking for someone to tell you what to do with your life, then I'm not the right guy. I used to do that quite a lot actually in my earlier life. But as a coach, it's much more powerful for them to develop that rather than being told what to do. And that's why coaching is so popular, growing, and an amazing personal development and professional development modality. And guess what? There's a lot of people that don't want to do that work. They want to be told what to do. Just tell me, Peter. Just, your experience, you've been an executive, you've been this, that, and the other. Just tell me. It's not my job anymore. I know that ends up handicapping you because you don't learn how to develop it for yourself. This is serious business. This is not just, I think I'll be a coach. I was a consultant yesterday. I think I'll be a coach today. It seems to be a popular terminology. Take it seriously, please. Get training. Learn what you need to learn to be a professional coach and to do the kinds of things that we're talking about right now. So offer the sample sessions. Very powerful because they get to experience you and they get to experience what coaching is and not what they think it is. We're going to spend 2 whole weeks on this coming up. Please don't miss those 2. It probably may be the most powerful ones that we do in this whole series. Because it sets the stage, it sets the expectations, it starts defining the roles of coach and client, all of that. And if they're not ready for it, then do not take somebody that needs to get therapy, and know when that line needs to be drawn. So this is just huge. This is just huge. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to stop long enough to see if there's any other questions that are coming through. Comments. My good friend Charles, the Wheel of Life exercise is one of the most effective tools of helping discover the priority, interests, and motivations of a prospective coaching client. Some of the most effective wheel exercise I have facilitated have been on the back of a paper placemat at a restaurant. Yeah. It allows the client to look at their life. We give you a generic one in our training, and you can find it in most coach trainings. There'll be a generic life balance wheel. That's the first stage of the wheel. The second stage is the more specific wheels that are specific, what I call affinity wheels. So an executive development coaching client has an executive development wheel. How well do I delegate? Not everybody in the entire world needs to learn that or develop that, but an executive must to be promotable. Someone's going through the last stage of life, the delegation doesn't really show up. Have I said everything I need to say to my family members and my loved ones? That would be on the hospice coaching wheel. And I actually have trained coaches to be professional hospice coaches. And they say it's the most rewarding work they've ever done. Not just for the client, the fellow that's in the bed that's going to die within a week, but their family members, their loved ones, they're estranged. Yeah. Yeah, it's very powerful. Okay. So let's move on to stage 4 in a typical coaching engagement. We're at the early stages still here of, are you the right coach for me? Are you the right client for me? Stage 5 is the contracting. So once you've gone through the sample session and the 2 of you have agreed that, you know what, wow, I'm looking forward to having a professional coaching relationship with you. And they basically both say that. And they both have to say that equally, by the way. If the client says, wow, I'd love to work with you, Peter, and I don't want to work with them, or they're not my type of client, or whatever, if there's just something that is not working for me, I am not obligated or ethically obligated to take every single client that comes to me. I currently work with world-changing visionaries. I am passionate about those that are world-changing visionaries with some form of a social agenda attached to it. That's who I work with. So I used to work with entrepreneurs. I don't work with entrepreneurs anymore, not unless they're a world-changing visionary. Same thing with you in terms of your clients. You're not obligated to coach everyone that shows interest. So if it works for both ways, then we go into contracting. Contracting is a written document. Do not have it be a verbal document. There's too many parameters in a professional coaching relationship that should be clearly and articulated in the language of the client so that they can both read it and understand it and ask questions about it. You have a discussion around all the points that are in it. There's a signed agreement by the client and the coach. It includes, among other things, and we'll go into more detail in this again in one of the weeks following in this series 4, what's the focus of it? What are the roles? What role do I play as a coach? What role do you play as a client? I always attach the code of ethics. Now, I've been an ICF member for 25 years, as long as I've been in coaching. I highly encourage you to become ICF members if you're not already. And if you're not, and you can't afford it, or you're not ready to, look up the code of ethics. You can't claim to be a member of the ICF, but you can use those code of ethics and say, these are the code of ethics that I choose to follow as a professional coach. Sponsor question mark. Sometimes there's a third party involved with the contracting. In other words, somebody calls me and says, I have an employee that I think that you'd be a good coach for. We go through the preliminary things that we just talked about, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. We come to agreement. Yep, I think that I would like to work with you, and they would like to work with me. But the company that they work for is going to pay for my coaching services. So that's what we call a sponsor. They either organize, they may have a panel of professional coaches that they have pre-screened. Most of them that I'm aware of require that you be an ICF professional coach and that you're credentialed. Some are at the ACC level, some are at the PCC level, but nevertheless, there's a sponsor that is both coordinating and facilitating and the one that's paying for that person, their employee, to get coached. That's what the sponsor is. So in the contracting, again, we'll get into more detail in a couple of weeks when we get into the contracting piece. Both the coach and the client will sign this document as well as the sponsor, and what role that sponsor will be playing. And the sponsor might be HR, learning and development, might be their immediate boss. It might be the business unit head of that particular vertical, etc. So that's what the sponsor is. So they're also included in this contracting. It's a very key part of the whole process. And to the extent that confidentiality is going to be held, I don't share anything, and it's articulated in writing. Don't ask me as the coach the progress of my client because everything is confidential. The client will report back what they are ready to report back to their boss, HR, learning and development, business unit head. Okay. So that's stage 5. Any questions so far? Cello, any questions from the Facebook group other than the ones that we've... Go ahead.
Yeah, actually, Yash Manior has one clarification. Peter, one of the challenges has been showing the ROI, return of investments, for something like this that's so intangible. Any thoughts?
Yeah, there's lots and lots of conversation about that, lots of research around that's taken place mostly in the last 15 years of the coaching profession. The best advice I have at this level of basics that we're going through today is ask the sponsor or ask the client, what is your ROI? What is your expectation? ROI is return on investment, by the way, for those of you that aren't familiar with that acronym. ROI, return on investment. In other words, I'm going to invest my time, I'm going to invest my money into hiring you as my coach. What's my return? So it can be intangible return. I want to be a more confident leader. I want to be a happier human being. I want to be a more understanding parent, etc. Right? That's a return on investment. In a business sense, it's, can my sales be increased by 46% if I invest these thousands of dollars into the coaching of my leadership? Be careful not to overextend yourself or guarantee that, because I do not guarantee an ROI, a financial ROI on my coaching. And I put that burden back on the client or the sponsor. What is the ROI that you want? I want to be able to retain this person. I want to be able to promote them within 6 months to a higher level position. I want them to be more conversant with different groups of employees other than the vertical that they're in right now. So have a conversation about that straight up. And you're also educating them in terms of what coaching is, the power of it, and what it is not. And you can have that around an ROI conversation with the person that's asking that. It's a great question, Yash. Thank you for that. Okay. let's move forward. We've got about 12 minutes there. Any other questions before I move on, Cello?
Yes, Peter, from Zoom, from Girish. Hi, Peter. Can you touch upon sponsor and clients relationships during reporting in a typical organization setup?
Can you touch upon sponsor and client relationships during reporting? During reporting. I'm not sure what during reporting you're referring to there, Garish.
Peter, what I meant is there are a lot of times where you have a contract with a sponsor. The sponsor actually gets you in an organization.
Right.
How should we report back to an sponsor is what my question was. What are the things we should be keeping in mind during contracting stage?
Thank you. The reporting back to the sponsor is the responsibility of the client. The only thing that I report back to the sponsor is that they showed up for their session. I can give them the date, the time, the duration, and do all of that with the sponsor. As I have fulfilled my duties as a coach to show up and be there for that particular employee of the sponsor. Now, up front in the contracting, if the sponsor says, I'd like to have a pre, during, and post report or coordinated session with both you and our employee, you being me, the coach, then I can either agree to that or not agree to that. Most coaches will agree to that. But again, be careful of, I am not there to report, okay, they've made 22% progress on their capacity to communicate with non-technical people, right? That's not my job to do. And don't take it on as a professional coach. I can be there to facilitate the feedback. Sometimes the questions are directed directly to me, okay, or the coach, professional coach. I defer that to the client. And I'd say, okay, so I'll say the client here is Garish, right, since you're the one that asked the question. I'll say, okay, so I think Garish has a pretty good handle on that. I'm going to allow him to articulate what progress he's made on that particular deliverable, that particular executable, that particular desired outcome that was articulated by you very clearly 3 months ago when we got together initially. Garish? And Garish answers that or doesn't answer that or says, I'm still struggling with this one. I've had several examples where again, whatever Garish is ready to divulge or talk about or share. So that's a big part of the reporting back. One of the things that most sponsors say is it's like a magic black box. I don't know what the heck's going on over there. They seem to be having a good time, but I don't know if it's been a good investment or not. I mean, that comes out a lot. Less and less, by the way. We're making major progress on that worldwide because they've been told now up front, you need to be the observer of Garish if Garish is the client here. So you see him on a daily basis. You interact with him on a weekly basis, whatever the case may be for the HR, again, L&D, whoever the sponsor is, or they get their Garish's boss involved. You're the one that has to observe and communicate. Is Garish making the kind of strides, progress, movement, development that you are looking for and that you and he have talked about? As a coach, do not take over the role of communicating what the sponsor wants from the client. I'm going to repeat that one. This is really important. As a coach, do not take on the responsibility to communicate that their boss, their employer, is very unhappy with them, and if they don't improve, they're going to get fired. All right? Because there's been lots of cases where the HR person doesn't want to say that, or they want to be kind of offshoot it. So don't.
Peter uncle, what are you doing?
So could you mute that background? Thank you, Cello. Yeah, don't take on that role. Make the sponsor share with the client, their employee, what exactly do you want to get out of this? What do you want? What improvements do you want to see and observe? And give them the role to observe that during the coaching engagement. Huge, huge, huge. I'm so glad you brought that up. Dr. Call saying, thank you for emphasizing the importance of confidentiality, irrespective of whether this session contract is sponsored or not, direct, paid by sponsor or the client. Yeah. It's a hallmark of professional coaching. If you divulge confidentiality, you destroy the use of coaching in that organization or that ecosystem, wherever it's, because nobody else will trust it. You can't have the client have the trust to divulge and go into the deeper recesses of what's going on for them. Yeah. I'm passionate about this. Can you tell? Okay, let's go. We got 6, 7, and 8 to go here. And these have been fabulous. Thank you for the interaction, by the way. I love this interaction. If you have other questions that we don't get to, type them in and we'll get to them offline. Yeah. Okay. Let me come over to my slides here. Number 6, the foundation session. Okay, so now we've completed contracting. Everybody knows what their role is and who's going to do what and who's reporting back to whom and confidentiality of what's not going to be reported back, et cetera, et cetera. Now we get into, before we start the ongoing, what I'm going to call the ongoing coaching sessions, which is number 7 coming up here, do a foundation session. There are so many of even my own students that say, oh, we don't have time to do this, because I suggest that you sit down, again, virtually, perfectly okay, before it was popular, from COVID. I did almost all of mine virtually. In other words, long distance by Skype or Zoom or some other methodology or phone. This is about a 2-hour conversation. And it goes into building rapport and trust, first and foremost. Build that trust. If you don't have trust, the client doesn't open up. It's really that simple. And now you might get to the top 10% of the superficiality of what's going on in that client's life or job or profession or relationship, but it doesn't go deeper than that. And frankly, I can't bother doing that kind of work. It's not worth it to me. My time is too precious to deal with somebody that's not ready to go really, really deep into what's happening in their life. So that's part of it. Second part of it is establish the goals. What's the goals of this engagement? A number of those would have come from the sponsor contracting. I want this person to be this, this, and this, and show improvement in this, this, and this area. Okay? But this is now just between you and the client. The sponsor is not involved with the foundation session. I want to get to know my client deeper. I want them to find out for themselves on a deeper level who they are. And I want to know what their goals are. Their goals might include some of the things that their sponsor is paying for them to be there. And it might be including some personal things as well. I'm having a rough patch with my spouse, with my life partner, with my family, with my whatever, with my health. Get all of the goals, not just the ones that are being, quote, sponsored by the employer. Who are the key people in their life? So sponsors could be a big part of that. Yeah, my boss is a big part of that. I meet with her every day, and we go over the daily plan or, what's going on with my division or my team. But it's also the people that I'm going to hear about during the course of the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of the engagement. My mother-in-law lives with us. Okay, it's a 3-generation household. So I'm the sandwich generation. And I have children, and their ages are this, and their names are this, and I have one parent that's living with me, and so on. So who are the key people? What kind of interactions do they have? And I ask those questions directly. And again, it's not to judge them. It's not to be prying. It's just what ecosystem is coming into, and I'm only responsible for the client, by the way. I'm not responsible for in-laws. I'm not responsible for kids. But they're going to be part of the conversation, most likely, sometime over the course of the next 6 months. I also have processes, some proprietary processes that we teach in our training for the clients to get themselves to know, for them to get themselves, know themselves better. Yeah. Okay. So it breaks the shell of all the maybe pre-programming that they've had or conditioning in their lifetime from their culture, from their gender, from their parents, from their schooling, from their organization, from all those kinds of things. And like, okay, so let's get through all of that shell of who you have to be to figure out who you are created to be. And that's just, for me, it's hugely important. Now, not every school does that to the extent that we do it. But I want my client to know themselves better. A great way of saying it is that they say at the end of, even the first 5 days, I've fallen back in love with myself. And that's so huge, to be comfortable in their own skin. It's just sacred work. Sacred work. Okay, we got about 2 minutes here. 3 minutes. And I got 2 more to go. So let's go here. It's going to be quick, I see. Number 7. The ongoing coaching sessions, it could be weekly, it could be every 2 weeks, it could be the first and third Thursdays of the month. You decide, the client decides what best works for you. I recommend that it be on the same day and the same time so that there's a rhythm that can take place over the course of session 1, session 2, session 3, session 4, rather than catch as catch can. So have it be on, find a day that works for you and a time that works for you as well as the client, and then stick to that as rigorously as you can. Now, it's not forbidden to change that, obviously, but it just, if there's a cadence or a rhythm, it supports the client. It just so supports the client. Note-taking, agenda, follow-ups, getting stuck, creating action steps after each session, and more and more and more. We'll talk about that in great detail when we talk about the ongoing session, this particular one, and we'll spend a whole week coming up on this particular stage and get into that in much more depth. Number 8. The completion session is just what it says. It's the last session of the engagement. So if the engagement is 12 weeks, then the 12th session is the completion session. If it's a year, then they started in January, you're going to finish it up in December. Then the December last session is going to be the completion session. You plan on this a couple of weeks ahead of time. Let the client know what to do to prepare for this. And you prepare and go back over your notes, and we're going to be, again, spend an entire week live session like this, Q&A, on what's inside of that. That's it. So that's the 8 steps, typically, from start to finish. Hello, what do you do for a living? To thank you, I've just loved coaching you, and God bless, right? And send them on their way. Next week, we're going to go to episode 2. We're going to talk specifically about the fulfillment coaching model. This is a very powerful coaching model that's been around now, again, for 25 years. We're going to go to it in some depth. We'll take some Q&A around it, and I hope you can join us next week. With that, be a great coach. Take it seriously. Become a professional coach. So God bless. Namaste. Until the next time.